It is Saturday, July 26th, and President Trump may have just ended another war. How many is that now? Stepping in and using trade this morning, suspending all trading, all access to U.S. markets for Cambodia and Thailand until this war ends. And it appears to have worked. We're going to show you also more bad news for the Dem Party. New polling has Dem approval at a new record low, and their fundraising levels are apocalyptic. Wait till you see this. And Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino dropping a dramatic, cryptic message this morning on what his corruption investigations have found, saying, "What we found thus far," he says, "has affected me to my core." Very dramatic language. Well, we now know what he's referring to and who we may see indicted next week. Wait till you see this. So, brand new polling by the Wall Street Journal has Dems with their lowest rating from voters in 35 years. The Journal finding the Dem Party's image has eroded to its lowest point in more than 3 decades, with the voters seeing Republicans as better at handling almost all issues affecting their daily lives. That's a quote. The poll showing a whopping 63% of registered voters view Dems unfavorably versus only 33% who have a positive impression, marking the lowest rating since 1990. The poll also finding voters trust Republicans over Democrats on inflation by 10 points, and immigration by 17 points, and handling illegal aliens by 17 points. One surprising finding, though, was voters' disapproval of Trump's tariffs by 17 points, which is just wild, because Trump's tariff policy has added a much-needed revenue source to the U.S. government. We're over $36 trillion in debt. That's a lot of money. We don't have enough revenue to even pay our bills. The U.S. government's running a $2+ trillion deficit annually. Trump's tariffs, they've already added over $200 billion in cash flow into our country's coffers in a few months. Estimates put tariff revenues at over $600 billion a year. That's what's expected. And pretty soon, some of that money may come back to you in the form of a rebate or stimulus check. Yes, stimulus checks may be making a return. Watch.
Mr. President, with all of that revenue coming in, tens of billions of dollars, do you think there's the possibility of a rebate to the American public in terms of all of that money?
We're thinking about that, actually. We have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're thinking about a rebate. That's a very good question. We just made a lot of news. We're thinking about a rebate because we have so much money coming in from tariffs that a little rebate for people of a certain income level might be very nice.
When Americans receive a big fat check with Trump's signature on it with a memo that says paid for by tariffs, I'd imagine the approval rating on tariffs may change significantly. Let me know what you think. Should we be using tariff revenue to pay stimulus checks out, or should we be paying down our national debt? Let me know what you think.
Really what's going on is they're rebalancing the VAT taxes, the consumer taxes. But the point is, if all this capital is coming in, the next part of the administration's focus, and I think there's a lot of pressure internally on this, is to start paying down this debt. And the good news is there's other ways to do it. We could open up the ANWR in Alaska and put a tariff on that oil like they do in Norway and just use it all for debt reduction. Debt reduction is the key to prosperity in America.
And going into the midterms next year, it's not just bad polling that Dems are facing. They're also finding it virtually impossible to raise money, something they were historically much better at than Republicans. As of last week, the RNC has $83 million in cash on hand, while the DNC has less than $11 million on hand, and their fundraisers are failing. Apparently, none of the normal big money Dem donors are even showing up to these events anymore. Dan Turrentine, a longtime Dem lobbyist and Democrat, blowing the whistle on the current state of the Dem Party, saying, "We have no agenda whatsoever," he says. "If we were to get power, I couldn't even tell you what we'd do with it." Watch.
We also obviously have a ton of problems, right? I mean, you talked about this earlier on. We have no agenda whatsoever. Like, if we were to get power, I couldn't tell you what we want to do. We are getting our butts kicked raising money. The RNC this past month has $83 million on hand. We have 13 million. The outside groups, we're spending money, 20 million to understand men. I don't know how many autopsies we have on one dead body. Republicans are stocking money. The worst thing is, Jesse, on voter registration, which Trump surged last year in 2023, 2024, it used to be our bread and butter, right? This is what we did. We're now lagging behind in all these swing states. If we can't raise money and we can't register new voters, we're going to have a big problem.
In another story, President Trump may have just ended another war. 4 days ago, Cambodia and Thailand entered into full-scale kinetic warfare. Videos online showing both militaries lobbing surface-to-air missiles across each other's borders, doing so in residential areas, right in people's backyards. The death toll reaching 32 as of last night, tens of thousands of people fleeing their homes. The UN Security Council holding an emergency meeting last night in New York, with Malaysia, who chairs the Security Council, offering to broker peace talks, a request that was rejected. Then this morning, the President of the United States stepping in, saying halting all trade agreement talks with those two countries and the U.S. effective immediately until a ceasefire is reached, which apparently worked. Trump, writing on Truth Social this morning, just spoke to the Prime Minister of Cambodia relative to stopping the war with Thailand. I'm now calling the acting Prime Minister of Thailand right now to likewise request a ceasefire and end to the war, which is currently raging. An hour later, he posted again about his call with the Prime Minister of Thailand, and then an hour after that, posting again. This is all Trump on Truth Social this morning, updating us in real time to what's happening, writing, "Success. I just had a very good call with the Prime Minister of Cambodia and informed him of my discussions with Thailand and its acting Prime Minister, both parties looking for an immediate ceasefire and peace. They're also looking to get back to the trading table with the U.S., which we think is inappropriate to do until such time as the fighting stops. They have agreed to immediately meet and quickly work out a ceasefire and ultimately peace. It was an honor to deal with both countries. They have a long and storied history and culture. They will hopefully get along for many years to come. When all is done and peace is at hand, I look forward to concluding our trading agreements with both." Whether you love him or hate him, you can't deny he is most definitely the most transparent president we've ever had, minus the Epstein saga. In another story, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino coming out of his hiatus and teasing some dramatic red meat on his X account this morning, saying, "During my tenure here as the Deputy Director of the FBI, I have repeatedly relayed to you that things are happening that might not be immediately visible, but they are happening. The Director and I are committed to stamping out public corruption and the political weaponization of both law enforcement and our intel operations. It is a priority for us. But what I have learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations has shocked me down to my core. We cannot run a republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned." A very dramatic message coming from Dan Bongino. Personally, I've always liked Dan. I believe him when he writes this. However, he just found himself in a ton of hot water after over-promising on the campaign trail, promising something he couldn't deliver with Epstein. And now it looks like he may be doing it again. Let me know what you think. Should the deputy director be teasing out statements like this? I'd say less talk and more action. Talk is cheap. Show us the receipts. If it's shocking you to your core, then I'd imagine you're talking about real criminal activity. Let's see the arrests. Now, after posting this, everyone started to speculate what exactly he's referring to. Well, he followed up with a link to a story from John Solomon focusing on how John Brennan will soon be indicted. Here's generally what Dan's referring to. Watch.
Listen, I think in the next week or two, we're going to see some new revelations about Brennan's conduct, not just in trying to insist with James Comey to get the dirty dossier into this intelligence assessment, to hijack it, but his handling of a source that is made to look like he has credible information, who I believe, based on my reporting, didn't really have access to Vladimir Putin, would have no way of knowing what Vladimir Putin's thinking is. I think that we don't normally let directors of the CIA handle sources. That's left to operations officers. So why does Brennan have a source? Who is that source? And what was his real access? And what did the career people of the CIA think about that access? I think that's going to become an area of great interest in the early criminal investigation. I think the second piece that we're also going to watch for, what was Jack Smith looking for when he went and raided Donald Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago in 2022? What was that raid looking for? And does it have a connection all the way back to this period of 16 when we're submitting dirty dossiers to the intelligence committee, hijacking intelligence products, and lying to FISA courts and the American public? I think those are two big developments that I think we're going to learn more about in the next couple of weeks.
Now, I can say that we've been hearing about this for a week now, how John Brennan is very likely going to be the first arrest that we see. Him and then James Clapper. It looks like the deputy FBI director just confirmed it for us. If he didn't, then again, he's overpromising. Next time, make the arrests and then talk about it. Otherwise, if it doesn't happen, it makes everyone look awful. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.